there's a lot of discussion on what's happening on the southern border, not so much about what's happening on the northern border. And as you and I talked about, we've had a really high level of Russian and Chinese incursions both into our ADIS and into our EEZ on the water. And very disturbingly and unprecedented, number of these are joint Chinese-Russian operations, including strategic Bear bomber and Chinese strategic bomber incursions into our ADIS this past summer with armed MiG fighters. As you know, the operations to go intercept these incursions take a lot of work. Our young men and women in the military do a fantastic job up in Alaska, but they also need a lot of tanker support for these kind of missions. Similarly with, they need fuel support for our Navy when we're doing operations in the Northern Pacific and the Arctic, which we've been doing a lot over the last 3 summers. Additionally, there's a lot of attention paid to the Central and South Pacific logistics lanes for any kind of conflict in Taiwan. But I think it's important to also look at the Northern Pacific logistic lanes as it relates to any kind of conflict like that. During World War II, General Simon Bolivar Buckner called the Aleutian Island chain, which obviously goes out there, a spear pointing right at the heart of Imperial Japan. And by that, he meant it was a very strategic location, not only attacking Japan, but for getting logistics into the fight as our forces throughout the Pacific move closer to Japan. Right now, if you look at one of the ports there, the port of Adak, which is on this map, a closed U.S. Navy base, that is a gateway to the Arctic, but is also on the flank of China. It has 3 piers, nearly two nearly 8,000-foot runways, and one of the largest bulk fuel storage facilities in the world. A lot of people don't know that. So the distance, too, in terms of where Adak sits, is about 2,900 nautical miles from Okinawa, while our good friends in Hawaii are about 4,000 nautical miles from Okinawa, making Adak the closest U.S. port outside of Guam to Okinawa to Taiwan. So President Trump has talked about ensuring Alaska gets more defense investment as we fully rebuild our military, especially as Russia and China are making menacing moves in the Pacific. Admiral Paparo and General Guillot have testified that Adak would provide them with very significant logistical and basing needs, and that we should reopen it. In terms of logistics, including with the shutting down of Red Hill, what's your thought on this base in terms of for logistics capability, fighter and aviation and Navy shipping support? There's also was a submarine base there. I'd like your view on that, General.
NORAD and NORTHCOM, when it comes to the great state of Alaska and the forces that they have there, do a fantastic job of letting us know when they need our help. And so whenever they ask, we're always there. We've never failed them. As they continue to look at how far forward they can go for the extension, if they're going to be present, so will we. Coming from the other direction, Admiral Paparo, I have given him my word that I will always be there with him wherever he needs us to be. If there's an opportunity to establish more of a footprint in the region, we will be there as well.
And let me ask just real quickly, you were up in Alaska recently. I appreciated the visit in January. Can you give me a sense of kind of lessons learned? I know you were at the Port of Anchorage, which is a really important DoD strategic port. Again, relating to these kind of logistical issues, we think it's important to have additional infrastructure capability in my state. But any main takeaways from the visit you had in January, General, and I really appreciate you coming up to our great state.
Chairman, it was a great visit. Went there intentionally in the wintertime
Good.
to see the conditions there. Unfortunately, it was colder in Illinois than it was in Alaska, and I got in trouble with
Yeah,
my
we've
bride.
had a little bit of a warm winter, particularly with the Iditarod last week.
But being in Alaska again and having a really good feeling standing there, almost standing on top of the world, looking at what's around us and how close it is incredibly strategic, and the reach that you can have from that location is incredible, and it's a big advantage to the United States. In looking at the Port of Alaska and that port cluster, I was very impressed with what I saw there. The port is well situated where it is. Despite the fact that there was ice on the sea, they were still able to operate. The ability of the Port Authority to adapt to the conditions, the snow and the ice didn't stop them. There was a tremendous amount that we learned there in terms of how to just adapt, period. The other thing was I was very impressed with the conditions in terms of the tides and the tide swings, which I understand can be as high as 12 to 17 feet swing. But the port authorities there and the folks who work the port, they know how to time it, and they know how to marshal things. They know how to line it up. And when it comes time to load and unload, some of the best I've ever seen. So I was incredibly impressed by that. With the U.S. forces that are there, they have a very good handle on their strategic role, not only in terms of what they can project, but the forces that they may host to operate there, or the forces that will actually flow through. And so when we combine all of that together, I'm really impressed with the platform we have in that state.
Great, thank you very much. I just actually had a meeting with our mayor of Anchorage, and we had a lot of discussion on the port, and we'll keep you appraised on the, refurbishing of that port. It's really important for our military. It's also really important for the people of Alaska, as that's where the vast majority of our supplies and food and everything and fuel come through the Port of Anchorage. We want to keep that viable, strong, and we're continuing to work on that with you and MIRAD and others. So thank you very much on that, General. Senator
I have a
Hirono.
question.